Wyoming, Wyoming, is a state in the mountain region of the western United States. Wyoming is the 10th largest, but the least populous and the second least densely populated of the 50 United States. The western two-thirds of the state is covered mostly with the mountain ranges and rangelands in the foothills of the eastern Rocky Mountains, while the eastern third of the state is high-elevation prairie known as the High Plains. Cheyenne is the capital and the most populous city in Wyoming, with a population estimate of 62,448 in 2013. Geography, location and size is specified in the designating legislation for the territory of Wyoming. Wyoming's borders are lines of latitude 41 degrees north and 45 degrees north, and longitude 104 degrees 3 W and 111 degrees 3 W, making the shape of the state a latitude-longitude quadrangle. Wyoming is one of only 3 states to have borders along only straight latitudinal and longitudinal lines, rather than being defined by natural landmarks, due to surveying inaccuracies during the 19th century. Wyoming's legal border deviates from the true latitude and longitude lines by up to half of a mile in some spots, especially in the mountainous region along the 45th parallel. Wyoming is bordered on the north by Montana, on the east by South Dakota and Nebraska, on the south by Colorado, on the southwest by Utah, and on the west by Idaho. It is the 10th largest state in the United States in total area, containing 97,814 square miles and is made up of 23 counties. From the north border to the south border it is 276 miles, and from the east to the west border is 365 miles at its south end and 342 miles at the north end. Mountain ranges. The Great Plains meet at the Rocky Mountains in Wyoming. The state is a great plateau broken by many mountain ranges. Surface elevations range from the summit of Gannett Peak in the Wind River mountain range, at 13,804 feet, to the Belfourche River Valley in the state's northeast corner, at 3,125 feet. In the northwest are the Absaroka, Owl Creek, Gros Ventre, Wind River and the Teton Ranges. In the north-central are the Bighorn Mountains, in the northeast, the Black Hills, and in the southern region the Laramie, Snowy and Sierra Madre Ranges. The Snowy Range in the south-central part of the state is an extension of the Colorado Rockies in both geology and appearance. The Wind River Range in the west-central part of the state is remote and includes more than 40 mountain peaks in excess of 13,000 feet tall in addition to Gannett Peak, the highest peak in the state. The Bighorn Mountains in the north-central portion are somewhat isolated from the bulk of the Rocky Mountains. The Teton Range in the northwest extends for 50 miles, part of which is included in Grand Teton National Park. The park includes the Grand Teton, the second highest peak in the state. The Continental Divide spans north-south across the central portion of the state. Rivers east of the divide drain into the Missouri River Basin and eventually the Gulf of Mexico. They are the North Platte, Wind, Bighorn and the Yellowstone Rivers. The Snake River in northwest Wyoming eventually drains into the Columbia River and the Pacific Ocean, as does the Green River through the Colorado River Basin. The Continental Divide forks in the south-central part of the state in an area known as the Great Divide Basin, where the waters that flow or precipitate into this area remain there and cannot flow to any ocean. Instead, because of the overall aridity of Wyoming, water in the Great Divide Basin simply sinks into the soil or evaporates. Several rivers begin in or flow through the state, including the Yellowstone River, Bighorn River, Green River, and the Snake River. Islands. Wyoming has 32 named islands, of which the majority are located in Jackson Lake and Yellowstone Lake within Yellowstone National Park in the northwest portion of the state. The Green River in the southwest also contains a number of islands. Public lands. More than 48% of the land in Wyoming is owned by the U.S. government, leading Wyoming to rank 6th in the U.S. in total acres and fifth in percentage of a state's land owned by the federal government. This amounts to about 30,099,430 acres owned and managed by the U.S. government. The state government owns an additional 6% of all Wyoming lands, or another 3,864,800 acres. The vast majority of this government land is managed by the Bureau of Land Management and U.S. Forest Service in numerous national forests, a national grassland, and a number of vast swathes of public land, in addition to the F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Cheyenne. In addition, Wyoming contains areas that are under the management of the National Park Service and other agencies. They include National Parks: Yellowstone National Park, Grand Teton National Park, Recreation Areas: Bighorn Canyon National Recreation Area, Flaming Gorge National Recreation Area, National Monuments: Devil's Tower National Monument, Fossil Butte National Monument, National Historic Trails and Sites: California National Historic Trail, Independence Rock, Fort Laramie National Historic Site, Medicine Wheel National Historic Site, Mormon Pioneer National Historic Trail, National Register of Historic Places listings in Wyoming, Oregon National Historic Trail, Pony Express National Historic Trail, National Parkways: John D. Rockefeller, Jr. Memorial Parkway between Yellowstone National Park and Grand Teton National Park, Wildlife Refuges and Hatcheries: Seeds City National Wildlife Refuge, National Elk Refuge, Jackson National Fish Hatchery, Saratoga National Fish Hatchery. Climate: Wyoming's climate is generally semi-arid and continental, and is drier and windier in comparison to most of the United States, with greater temperature extremes. Much of this is due to the topography of the state. Summers in Wyoming are warm, with July high temperatures averaging between 85 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit in most of the state. With increasing elevation, however, this average dropped rapidly, with locations above 9,000 feet averaging around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Summer nights throughout the state are characterized by a rapid cool-down, with even the hottest locations averaging in the 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit range at night. In most of the state, most of the precipitation tends to fall in the late spring and early summer. Winters are cold, but are variable, with periods of sometimes extreme cold interspersed between generally mild periods, with Chinook winds providing unusually warm temperatures in some locations. Wyoming is a dry state, with much of the land receiving less than 10 inches of rainfall per year. Precipitation depends on elevation, with lower areas in the Bighorn Basin averaging 5 to 8 inches. The lower areas in the north and on the eastern plains typically average around 10 to 12 inches, making the climate there semi-arid. Some mountain areas do receive a good amount of precipitation, 20 inches or more, much of it is snow, sometimes 200 inches or more annually. The state's highest recorded temperature is 114 degrees Fahrenheit at Basin on July 12, 1900, and the lowest recorded temperature is -66 degrees Fahrenheit at Riverside on February 9, 1933. The number of thunderstorm days vary across the state, with the southeastern plains of the state having the most days of thunderstorm activity. Thunderstorm activity in the state is highest during the late spring and early summer. The southeastern corner of the state is the most vulnerable part of the state to tornado activity. Moving away from that point and westwards, the incidence of tornadoes drops dramatically, with the west part of the state showing little vulnerability. Tornadoes, where they occur, tend to be small and brief, unlike some of those that occur little farther east. History: several Native American groups originally inhabited the region now known as Wyoming. The Crow, Arapaho, Lakota, and Shoshone were but a few of the original inhabitants encountered when white explorers first entered the region. What is now southwestern Wyoming became a part of the Spanish Empire and later Mexican territory of Alta California, until it was ceded to the United States in 1848 at the end of the Mexican-American War. John Colter, a member of the Lewis and Clark expedition, itself guided by French-Canadian Toussaint Charbonneau and his young Shoshone wife, Sakagawa, first described the region in 1807. At the time, his reports of the Yellowstone area were considered to be fictional. Robert Stewart and a party of 5 men returning from Astoria discovered South Pass in 1812. The Oregon Trail later followed that route. In 1850, Jim Bridger located what is now known as Bridger Pass, which the Union Pacific Railroad used in 1868, as did Interstate 80. In 90 years' time, Bridger also explored Yellowstone and filed reports on the region that, like those of Colter, were largely regarded as tall tales at the time. The region had acquired the name Wyoming by 1865, when Representative James Mitchell Ashley of Ohio introduced a bill to Congress to provide a temporary government for the territory of Wyoming. The territory was named after the Wyoming Valley in Pennsylvania, made famous by the 1809 poem Gertrude of Wyoming by Thomas Campbell, based on the Battle of Wyoming in the American War of Independence. The name ultimately derives from the Munsee word xwe acute, Wamenk, meaning, at the Big River Flat, after the Union Pacific Railroad had reached the town of Cheyenne in 1867. The region's population began to grow steadily, and the federal government established the Wyoming Territory on July 25, 1868. Unlike mineral-rich Colorado, Wyoming lacked significant deposits of gold and silver, as well as Colorado's subsequent population boom. However, South Pass City did experience a short-lived boom after the Carissa mine began producing gold in 1867. Furthermore, copper was mined in some areas between the Sierra Madre Mountains and the Snowy Range near Grand Encampment. Once government-sponsored expeditions to the Yellowstone country began, reports by Colter and Bridger, previously believed to be apocryphal, were found to be true. This led to the creation of Yellowstone National Park, which became the world's first national park in 1872. Nearly all of Yellowstone National Park lies within the far northwestern borders of Wyoming. On December 10, 1869, Territorial Governor John Allen Campbell extended the right to vote to women, making Wyoming the first territory and then U.S. state to grant suffrage to women. In addition, Wyoming was also a pioneer in welcoming women into politics. Women first served on juries in Wyoming. Wyoming had the first female court bailiff, and the first female justice of the peace in the country. Also, in 1924, Wyoming became the first state to elect a female governor, Nellie Taylor Ross, who took office in January 1925. Due to its civil rights history, Wyoming's state nickname is the Equality State, and the official state motto is Equal Rights. Wyoming's constitution included women's suffrage and a pioneering article on water rights. Congress admitted Wyoming into the Union as the 44th state on July 10, 1890. Wyoming was the location of the Johnson County War of 1892, which erupted between competing groups of cattle ranches. The passage of the Federal Homestead Act led to an influx of small ranches. A range war broke out when either or both of the groups chose violent conflict over commercial competition in the use of the public land. Demographics. Population. The United States Census Bureau estimates that the population of Wyoming was 586,107 on July 1, 2015, a 3.99% increase since the 2010 United States Census. The center of population of Wyoming is located in Natrona County. In 2012, the United States Census Bureau estimated that the racial composition of the population was 93.1% white American. 2.6% American Indian and Alaska Native, 1.5% Black or African American, 0.9% Asian American, and 0.1% Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. 9.5% of white Americans were Hispanic or Latino. According to the 2010 census, the racial composition of the population was 90.7% white American, 0.8% Black or African American, 2.4% American Indian and Alaska Native, 0.8% Asian American, 0.1% Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander, 2.2% from two or more races, and 3.0% from some other race. Ethnically, 8.9% of the total population was of Hispanic or Latino origin and 91.1% non-Hispanic, with non-Hispanic whites constituting the largest non-Hispanic group at 85.9%. As of 2015, Wyoming had an estimated population of 586,107, which was an increase of 1,954, or 0.29%, from the prior year and an increase of 22,481, or 3.99%, since the 2010 census. This includes a natural increase since the last census of 12,165 people and an increase from net migration of 4,035 people into the state. Immigration resulted in a net increase of 2,264 people, and migration within the country produced a net increase of 1,771 people. In 2004, the foreign-born population was 11,000. In 2005, total births in Wyoming numbered 7,231. Sparsely populated, Wyoming is the least populous state of the United States. Wyoming has the second lowest population density, behind Alaska. It is one of only two states with a smaller population than the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. The largest ancestry groups in Wyoming are German, English, Irish, American, Norwegian, and Swedish. As of 2011, 24.9% of Wyoming's population younger than age 1 were minorities. Languages in 2010, 93.39% of Wyomingites over the age of 5 spoke English as their primary language. 4.47% spoke Spanish, 0.35% spoke German, and 0.28% spoke French. Other common non-English languages included Algonquin, Russian, Tagalog, and Greek. In 2007, the American Community Survey reported that 6.2% of Wyoming's population over 5 years old spoke a language other than English at home. Of those, 68.1% were able to speak English very well, 16.0% spoke English well, 10.9% did not speak English well, and 5.0% did not speak English at all. Religion. According to a 2013 Gallup poll, the religious affiliations of the people of Wyoming were 49% Protestants, 18% Catholics, 9% Latter-day Saints and less than 1% Jewish. A 2010 ARDA report recognized as the largest denominations in Wyoming the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with 62,804, the Catholic Church with 61,222 and the Southern Baptist Convention with 15,812 adherents. The same report counted 59,247 evangelical Protestants, 36,539 mainline Protestants, 785 Eastern Orthodox Christians, 281 Black Protestants, as well as 65,000 adhering to other traditions and 340,552 unclaimed.